Thank you. I'm here to talk about hybrid classrooms, and it's probably a topic that most of you don't think about on a daily basis. And in fact, even in the educational circles, it's just becoming a topic that we're starting to talk about. So I'm hoping to get you really excited about the concept of hybrid classrooms, explain a little bit about what they are, and talk a little bit about the benefits. We're certainly here today to talk about community, and community plays a huge role. In fact, really, the ability to bring community into our classrooms is why I'm talking about hybrid classrooms. So let's get a little understanding about hybrid classrooms and what it means. So I want you to think about how you learn, and I want you to think about how you grow as professionals and individuals. And I want you to think about, do you rely today as adults and professionals, do you rely on online resources, internet-based resources? And do they play a significant role in how you learn as professionals? So just a show of hands, how many people would say that online or internet-based resources play a rather significant role in how you learn today as a professional? Right? So you can see the hands. About 80% or more of you said that it does play an important role. So if we think about defining hybrid classrooms, what does that really mean? We know what the term hybrid means. But this is the definition that we're going to use for today. These are classrooms that use online content and communication tools to enable student to teacher, student to student, and student to community communications. And these are really interactions that go far above what we can possibly do in a face-to-face classroom. Now, the key is obviously talking about community. In a hybrid classroom, we bring the community into that face-to-face classroom. And again, that's what we're here today to talk about, is how do we actually do that. So not necessarily a new concept. Bringing community into education has been going on for some time, but certainly the tools that technology provide us enable us to do that to a greater degree. So I want you to think back to a graduation speech that you heard recently, or maybe if you haven't been to a high school graduation, think back to your graduation speech. My guess is that at some point in that conversation, somebody said, "And now it's time for you to go out into the real world." Does it sound familiar? It sounds familiar to me. In fact, I think I have not been to a graduation speech and that line hasn't been used. Interestingly enough, if we think about that conceptually, we think about it's graduation time, and now we're telling the students, now is the time at the end of your high school career to go out into the real world. Interesting. And you think about that alignment, you can see the alignments on our arrows here. Eventually, there is an integration of that student into the community. But that alignment, those arrows are pretty far apart. So when we think about what we can do in hybrid classrooms, it really does change that paradigm. Hybrid classroom is really about bringing the community to be part of a student's education from day one. And that's a significant difference in terms of actually sending students out after the graduating year and say, go figure it out now, find out what's really out there. I think we can do better. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story because there's a couple of things involved with hybrid classrooms, obviously teaching and technology and how did I get interested. And I'm hoping my story really helps you understand where I'm coming from. So I was a young musician in school, very interested in music, and that's really exciting. There's lots of music people here today. The great thing about being a music person in schools, especially face-to-face schools, is you have an opportunity every day to work with somebody that is modeling what you want to do. Imagine that. I had that opportunity in public school. I got to work with my teachers who every day were teaching music, but more importantly, I got to work with teachers who said, he needs to be brought into the community. So even as a young child interested in music, my teachers helped me reach out to the community. I actually was hired to play jobs when I was a young student. Now, those jobs weren't very fantastic jobs, but they were really jobs. They were me going out in the community and playing. By the time I was in 10th grade, I was actually the choir director at our church. So imagine as a 10th grader going into your church and being the choir director with a bunch of adults. It was very interesting. But I had that opportunity. What if you happen to be interested in something, or maybe you don't know what you're interested in schools? Maybe you have questions, and a program maybe that you're interested in really isn't available in school. And those are all these students I always think about. I think, well, how do students know they want to go into medicine? How do students know they want to be an engineer? Do they practice medicine? I had been practicing music since I was in 4th grade. Every night I would go home and practice music. In fact, it's a little scary to think that somebody in high school would be practicing medicine, right? You don't get the opportunity to do that. Well, what if those students do want to go into the medical field, or maybe they want to learn about biomed, or maybe they want to learn about the health industry or health care? Maybe you have students who really, where are they going to find out about alternative energies? Solar power, biomass fuels. Where would they learn about those topics in an environment where it's hands-on with people that really are experts in their field? Or what if they want to learn how just to invent things and producing products and creating machines that makes life easier? So, schools can do great things, but there is an opportunity for us to bring the community in to really improve on those things schools can offer. And that's what I'm talking about, is hybrid classrooms where we bring experts in the community using technology tools into the schools to work with our kids. Simple concept, but that's what I'm here today. Something simple that we can remember. Hybrid classrooms is a very simple concept. So that was sort of the music life. I had the opportunity to reach out in the community. I think we can do that with technology tools today. Well, now we need to start thinking about this from a school perspective. So by the time 2008 rolled around, this was just a couple years ago, I had really taken the opportunity to rethink about my musical past. I started thinking about all these kids that are really excited about music. And I started thinking a little bit about my history of being a music teacher. I think this is what kids thought about my music classes. Right? I sort of stood in front of the class and I taught the way I was supposed to teach, and I taught them all the historical aspects of music I felt they really should understand. And I was pretty sure that if given the right tool, this would make them a lot happier. Right? They were sort of wanted to be down with music class. Wouldn't make me very happy, however. And I started to realize I really needed to create experiences that allowed students to create and talk to real musicians and think about music in terms of their real lives. And so I started thinking about technology and how technology could play a role, and how students obviously are very engaged with technology, and it would even be better if we could get students thinking about music and using that connected technology. And lo and behold, we are able to do that today. So in my development of a program that puts technology in the hands of students from an artistic perspective, I've gained some perspective over what technology and connecting students to others and myself and a program of study on music can do, in addition to the work they're doing in the classroom. So I started thinking about, well, if we could do this with music, can we do it with any and all subjects? Because I think that's one of the things that when you think about hybrid, you think, well, maybe that's pretty easy with music. We can go get musicians and bring them into the classroom. Via technology, they can talk to other musicians from around the country. Sounds great. Could we really do that with any and all subjects? So I started thinking about, well, is there an opportunity for me to try a subject? Maybe I'll start with a light subject, maybe something easy. How about entrepreneurship? So I've had the opportunity over the last couple years to be working on a project where entrepreneurship, I think it's a great subject because it covers all of those topics, right? It covers that topic of fuels and health industry. And I started thinking about, well, we could really gain a lot of great hybrid class experiences. So I put together a couple of must-haves for us. So as you think about if there's school leaders in here and community leaders in here, this is sort of my set of goals for us, and we must think about these things if we're really going to develop great hybrid classrooms where we connect community into our schools. First thing is, you need an amazing, dynamic teacher. You need somebody at that school who's really excited about education, somebody who is really excited to go to work every day, somebody that doesn't have to use the alarm clock and drag themselves out of bed. You need somebody who is energized about the prospects of connecting kids with their community. The number one thing. And see, technology doesn't remove the teacher. You need an organization that knows and understands how to develop really good educational content. Well, a good way to develop educational content is to tell stories. I told my story today. And hopefully it's something that will connect you with the topic that I'm talking about. And in fact, this is one of the key things about hybrid education. Teachers have tough jobs. Can you imagine as a teacher coming up every day with a story to tell your students that directly relates them to the subject? It takes thought, it takes time. And that's one of the things the organization who's building the content for your students to use in your classrooms, that hybrid content, access to that content, the content you access every day, why do you pay attention to it? because it tells stories, it's exciting, it's something you want to learn from, right? And so that's what we have to do as an organization, is develop that content. The next thing is we have to have teachers that really think differently about the clock. We have to have teachers that think a little bit differently about the minutes that go by in a day, and when they're to be teaching, when they're not to be teaching, when they should be grading papers, when they should not be grading papers, how to be efficient teachers, etc. So the answers will be different for every teacher, but nonetheless, you have to have a teacher who doesn't think necessarily about the time. The educational organization developing the content has to build activities for the students that are engaging real assignments. These are not multiple choice tests. These are not true and false tests. These are products and projects. And as you can see in the diagram, they are items that have inputs into other things students will do, and they will be themselves real products that students can use. And so for entrepreneurship, an obvious one, right? A great business plan, a great elevator pitch. All of those assignments, they are usable assignments for students. And then we have to have a school that really looks at the rules and regulations, policies and procedures and thinks, can we break some of those? Should we break some of those? Some of those don't work anymore. That's a tough one. But it's one that's absolutely necessary if you're going to create hybrid, engaging learning experiences for students and connect to the community. It's amazing the policies you'll have to think about. But those are policies that are really important to your kids. Obviously, you want to maintain safety. Obviously, you want to maintain control of the education environment, but sometimes you may have to break a rule or two. And then you need an organization to really manage all of that community activity. Can you imagine as a teacher having the opportunity to say, there are 25 speakers in line to come into your classroom. Go ahead and manage them. In addition to all the work they have to do, that's a lot of work. So the organization really that can manage all of that interaction and the enticing the organization, the community to come into the schools, the organization really who can manage that is really needed. So what we are really here to do, and what my idea is that by creating hybrid classrooms, we're creating that continual regenerative learning. So what does that really mean? What it means is something very simple. Instead of waiting to that graduation time and sending the students out to the community, we now have students who know what businesses are in the community. We know what the businesses are doing in our community. We have students who understand the challenges of those businesses, those organizations, those educational organizations, those charity organizations. They understand those organizations. Why? Because they've been working with the people that lead and work at those organizations to build on their education. And so when it comes time for graduation, they already know, how can I help my community? That makes a lot of sense. So when we think about what we're here to do in terms of hybrid education, I'll leave you with one final thought. We are a school and we have students to educate. And using our technology sort of symbolism, students really are sending out the signals. They're sending out the signals that they're interested in learning about their community. As a young student, I sent out the signals I was interested in being a musician, and people luckily came to me and said, you know what, this is great, we're going to help you be that musician you can be from a young age. And it's really up to us to be the schools and the organizations that have all three bars, full signals, receiving those signals from the students. And so our challenge is to build this hybrid nature. We all in this room today need to think of the ways that we can volunteer our time, participate in the learning of students, and offer some great educational opportunities. And I know that one of the songs we heard earlier was, "It takes a village to raise a child." It certainly takes a community to educate them all. Thank you.